Hi, and thank you for coming. I'm Karen Shatafian, and I need to put my glasses on. Sorry. And I'm a relatively new writer. I started writing quite by accident, actually. You see, I'm a surfer. And 2.5 years ago, a friend and I decided to set a goal to surf every Wednesday for a year. No matter the conditions or the weather or our health, we were committed to surf every Wednesday. We started a blog, Wahine Wednesdays, to document our journey. My newfound love for writing was a byproduct of this blog. We reached our goal last March, and sadly, with the completion of our goal, came the end of the blog. However, the experience ignited many new passions and ideas in me, and I recently started a new blog called One Salty Kiss. In order to be a surfer or a writer, you need 4 things. You need passion, you need to be adaptable, you need commitment, and you must be fearless. Here's a piece I wrote as I was on my quest to surf every Wednesday for a year. It's called Surfing, Fear, and Jury Duty. 2 weeks ago, I was called for jury duty. The morning I was to report, I packed my new book and was resigned to the idea of spending my day in a courthouse. From previous experiences, I was anticipating a lot of waiting. Well, long story short, by lunchtime, I was on a jury. I wasn't prepared to spend the next goodness knows how many days listening to testimony and attorney banter, but prepared or not, I was on that train and it was leaving the station. Later, on the drive home, I was making a mental list of the responsibilities and commitments I would need to rearrange now that I was on this jury. Then it dawned on me, tomorrow was Wednesday. Do I tell the judge, sorry, I may be a little late to court because I made this commitment to surf every Wednesday for a year? I was pretty sure that wouldn't fly. I was trying to decide how would I get my Wahine Wednesday surf in. I needed to be in court by 8:45. So taking everything into consideration, this meant dawn patrol, surfing at dawn. This was earlier than any of my Wahines could imagine, so I would have to go alone. Alone. I've surfed without my posse before, but there have always been other surfers in the water, a safety net in case something goes awry. I wasn't sure if anyone else would even be in the water at this pre-dawn hour. The thought of being all alone was unsettling. I knew the surf wasn't going to be that big, so I wasn't concerned about the conditions. I was just very uneasy about being in the ocean alone. But as I tried to come up with options, I didn't feel I had a choice. The next morning came all too soon. As I left my house, it was dark, like nighttime dark. The streetlights were still on. As I drove down my street, not a soul was to be seen. That was when the first twinge of fear crept in. I'm getting ready to get into the ocean in the dark alone. Is this a good idea? I tried to put that thought out of my mind. Surfers do this all the time, I decided. I kept driving toward the beach. As I pulled into the lot, hoping to see at least one car, my heart sank. Empty. No one. Not one car, not one person. Just the ocean and me in the darkness. I pulled into a space and turned my car off. Why am I doing this? Who does this? Am I really going to do this? After sitting there for a moment, I answered my own panicked questions. Because I made a commitment, I do, and yes. I took my time pulling my board out of the board bag, hoping that someone else would pull up. They never did. I was feeling trepidation. I was not totally convinced I should do this. However, with my jury duty clock ticking, it was now or never. I grabbed my board, attached my leash to my ankle, and gradually headed toward the water. The first thing I noticed in the darkness was the silence. The only sound was that of the ocean waves gently breaking on the shore. Ironically, at the peak of my fear, in anticipation of entering the dark water, my senses were the most relaxed. The sound of the surf was mesmerizing. The air was salty sweet. The lights of the pier in the distance, reflecting on the water, created a soft glow. As I gingerly made my way into the ocean, the water was cool on my feet. After a few more steps, I lay on my board and start paddling. In this moment, I felt the most alone. I was surrounded by darkness. The water was dark, the sky was dark. The only sound was the waves breaking onto shore. I started to freak out inside. My mind was racing. I thought about sharks. I thought about drowning. I thought about getting sucked out to sea. I was afraid of what was in the water with me. And I was most afraid of being here in the water, surrounded by darkness, alone. I quickly realized I needed to get it together. I needed to focus. I needed to quiet my mind and concentrate on what I was there to do. I was there to surf. All I needed to think about in this moment was positioning myself to catch waves. I tried the best I could to put out the thoughts of dread. I instead occupied my mind with the mechanics of the task I was there to accomplish. So I caught wave after tiny wave, alone. After what seemed like an eternity, I realized the sun was starting to rise. The sky and subsequently the water became a brilliant shade of pink. I was starting to be able to see. People began pulling into the parking lot. My own little personal challenge was coming to an end, as was my solitude. It was time for me to get out of the water and start my day. I was reluctant. I felt like I had just experienced something special. I started in silence and darkness. I watched the beautiful sunrise and the world come to life. Just 30 minutes earlier, I was feeling fearful and anxious. Now I was feeling peace. I had come full circle. I paused to think, how often am I truly alone in darkness and in silence? How often do I have to experience fear totally alone? Ironically, today surfing and jury duty forced me to face my fears. I would never have paddled out in the dark, alone, if not for the commitment to Wahine Wednesdays and my obligation to the court. The conjunction of these two events pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to experience fear and decide how I was going to handle it. This was timely for me. There was a reason I was called to sit on that jury, not solely to determine the plaintiff's fate, but also to determine my own, to develop my character and expose the essence of who I am, to help me realize I don't need to be afraid. I'm strong enough to handle my fears. It brought to my attention that my fears on the sand at times get the better of me. Fear of failure, fear of not being good enough, fear of being alone. And sometimes we just have to fight these battles in solitude. It helps to have people in our corner, but ultimately we need to enter the ring alone. And on this dark and lonely day, I entered the ring alone and emerged victorious. I proved to myself that I can face fear head on, and that when I feel surrounded by darkness and alone, I am strong enough to handle my fears, and I will eventually emerge in the sunlight. Thank you so much for taking time to listen.